Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. So last time we had a great time with Elvira. Unfortunately no pro mode, so that once again probably implies that Elvira as a table was the first season, the first generation, first version of Pinball Arcade that didn't introduce the pro mode. But unfortunately, as much fun as I did have with it, and I would definitely be willing to go back and play it with it. I probably wouldn't put Elvira any higher than top 9 of the tables available here, and I'm not really sure how many tables are missing that would make it to the top 10 uh, as far as tables that I would actually know existed and did not get ported or licensed for Pinball Arcade. Today we're doing lights, camera, action, which you can see in the top of the backboard. There is a extra backboard that is curved downward. That doesn't seem like that is just for speakers or anything. That seems like a weird gimmick, adding even more hardwood. I did see what the weight of a pinball table is, and you're talking like 290 pounds, 300 pounds. So imagine a really fat man, dead weight, just a fat dead body, trying to move that. I don't know why I'm using this. Is, that's not something people would relate to. That's a terrible example. Um, it would make more sense to say, imagine if you had 6 50-pound sacks of potatoes and drag that around all at once. It's a ridiculous amount of weight, and it's not just because it's not that arcade owners or attendants would have to move pinball tables that much. They almost never move them. The legs on them are not particularly that strong. The problem is in the shipping. Like, if you've ever had to ship anything freight, you can easily double the price of the unit. So if this was a $2,000 pinball table at 300 pounds, nowadays in 2021, yeah, you could pay $500 to ship something like that, particularly depending on the distance, having to ship things for freight. There used to be a lot of really heavy big screen TVs uh, that were like 150 pounds, and the price just got ridiculous on shipping that. Most things now have scaled down their weight considerably. You don't get hardwood solid furniture that would have to be shipped by freight, and that's the only reason why furniture stores made sense, or mattress stores made sense, is because shipping such a large object, even a mattress which isn't even that heavy, before you had the expanding foam that could be shipped in a box, they were just so took up so much space that the shipping companies would charge you a ridiculous amount. Uh, so the idea, to get back to lights, camera, action, of adding more another box is kind of crazy. We've seen in other instances they've added plastic lights, that they add a fan, um, they move some things around, but more wood seems kind of ridiculous. This is also our last 1980 table. So, Hollywood themes, we haven't seen one before. You could have easily had a table around that theme. Uh, Perhaps, yeah, by 89, you would have seen plenty of people talking about the production of movies, whereas if you were talking like 60s, there probably wasn't that much behind the scenes uh, information out there. Lights, camera, action, 1990, 1989, 89. We still have the entire 90s, which is a massive amount of tables still. Is another great game for Gottlieb that was designed by John Norris. It puts player in the role of the director, challenged with finishing an exciting action movie. Action movies and pinball, that makes sense. This is accomplished by completing classic action movie scenes such as a gunfight scene, stunt scene, foot chase scene on the stairs. This innovative table features many industry firsts, including floodlights on the back box, a rotating mini playfield. Ooh, I don't know if I like that idea of a rotating playfield. A player interactive light box animation. That might be what's at the top. And ball jets, which launch balls back at the player. I think I hate that concept, just from the description. This was also the first table to include a catch-up feature, giving players of all skill levels a chance in multiplayer games. 1,708 units of this table were produced. That is by far the smallest number of tables that we've seen produced and mentioned when they mention the names for the last half of the 80s and pretty much even the 70s. Yeah, there definitely were 70s tables that made that little a number. I don't know if that is perhaps an indication that there is just more and more competition, and these pinball tables were just not disposable, so there just was this increasing saturation as far as the arcade industry, that you couldn't make more arcades. You can only have like one arcade for every 10,000 people in a city, I'm sure. Just to pick a random number, that'd be my guess. So all the existing tables up until this point would have either had to been broken down or sent back, and it would have really helped, I imagine, the pinball industry if there was a return feature where you could send back an old table and get some kind of refund, and then the pinball table companies would either destroy those tables or reuse the parts. So here we have what I think is supposed to be a George Lucas reference, and I feel like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, this might be Steven Spielberg too, it's hard to tell what they're parodying. Those were kind of, in the 80s, the first celebrity people. What's interesting is the artwork of these two is overlaid on top of the table art in another layer, so that the artwork is over the lights. That seems weird. And then you have this big number. Then you have a genie. Is that how you would pronounce that? And then you have a blonde and a brunette, and another brunette with striking highlight. So you have a flipper on the left, and you have a stunt scene that goes there. That seems fairly simplistic. You have a bad guy that I don't know if this is supposed to be an Italian, but I imagine he's supposed to be Asian, since you have kind of a Chinatown stereotypical thing here. So I imagine that's it. What is this though? You shoot this up this ramp, and then it comes back around, and apparently ball locks, but I don't know where that would even eject. It must come back around and then loop and drain down this way. That's slightly interesting. Here you have a probably Dirty Harry type character, Gunfight. A lot of these movie items and concepts aren't even by 2021 what you would see in movies so much. This does feel a lot closer to the closest movie I could think of is the Rush Hour series, and those were parodies themselves. Wonder if this is the spinning playfield. That doesn't look too crazy. If you shoot up here and then the table spins. I don't know if you actually control the spinning or not. It feels like what you do is you go up here, it spins around, locks in this ball, and then you can see a wire there that triggers when the ball has hit the sinker, and then it might spin it and shoot it back up into that area, and then maybe it shoots it back up into that area, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's the exact opposite. You shoot up here and the ball launches here and then it gets shot up here. It feels like those are both probably involved in multi-ball. You have drop down targets with standing targets behind it, which that seems like too much, but it is kind of an interesting idea around trying to get specific shots. If you're really good about hitting in this general area, then doubling the shots there is an interesting idea. Although at a certain point, why not just have the drop down targets jump down and then 3 in the middle pop back up and save yourself from having twice as much content. We have a center peg, but probably no ball saver. I'm not seeing a kickback. It seems like they very often don't animate the plunger on the kickback. It's just like hidden and you're always looking at an angle so that you can't really see. It says kick save there, so it probably does play something. I would say though, these ladies don't really feel like they play a role in the movie, which would be fairly typical, wouldn't it? That there would be these just arm candy ladies on the table, but every single scene we see here, alright, here's the lady chasing after them at the back, but I don't see them involved in any of the action anywhere else. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. A lot of stuff. Draw 5 faces to complete a scene. Interesting. So each character represents a straight flush, and that seems crazy. It also is kind of crazy you can zoom in that much and see how at 1080p that's fairly blurry, but not unbelievably blurry. We're starting to see a lot more of the say no to drugs stuff. Like the only concern is drugs. It looks to me like the backboard is multiple layers that would move around a marionette too. Unfortunately, once again, we can't see the top of the backboard. So let's look at the flyer. So I wonder if these are self-insert characters on the flyer, which if you're gonna have to self-insert your character, at least do it on the flyer and not on the game itself. So yeah, I imagine these are 4 major people in charge of creating a table. There is a question, I would imagine, as far as how much of a collaborative effort it really was to create a table versus who got credit. It was very common, even today in 2021, for one celebrity producer to claim all credit when it really is a whole team underneath them working on it, or a collaborative effort from many people. I would imagine George Lucas and Steven Spielberg are also kind of in that same situation where they on their own probably don't do all the work. For standard goals, we're going to win a gunfight, complete a poker hand, earn an extra ball, activate a 3-ball multi-ball, and score a countdown bonus. The countdown bonus there seems to be about the only one that would be most confusing. So let's go. Interesting, so the camera is going to move. So that was winning a gunfight, and something just moved. Like, I earned an extra ball before I even started the game. Somehow? That seems insane.
Ready, set, draw.
So you win a draw, and that apparently gives you a mystery. Well, this is one of those tables that has the visuals all over the place. Do I have to hit that twice for a jackpot? Because that just said jack. It didn't say jackpot. Oh no, it's spelling cards, not jackpot. Huh. Well, that was something that I could easily be confused. Alright. Hit this.
Ready, set, draw.
Like, you're gonna win the draw, I think, pretty much always. Like, if you just have a modern reaction time, like, a table like this is gonna let you win and succeed. See, I guess I want the table here. So that's not the spinning part, I guess, because I guess it's the other area that's the spinning part over there on the left. Well, that's a different way. Spinning was like, that is not the kind of spinning I was expecting by any means. I was expecting it to spin on the table like a sandpaper, not to rotate the lamps. It feels like the ball would get stuck very quickly, very oftenly. So it really feels like it could only happen a few times. So there's two different places where the ball just gets shot up really high to get the ball to basically be in the center of the table, because otherwise there's no way to return the ball. That is high action, so if the theme of this table was action, I would have to call that a success. But it kind of kills a loop in a lot of ways. Like, what they're really missing here is the idea of having a ramp to go to the in lane of the left or the right flipper, so that you could shoot a ramp at the top to do a figure 8 loop. Let's see, 3-ball, multi-ball, and countdown bonus. Let's see what this is. Mystery functions can be very valuable. Random mystery features awarded when you win a gunfight or when you complete a poker hand with a 1 or 2 pair. I don't know what is changing what cards you would get, because it feels like you could potentially get 5 of a kind, or at least 4 of a kind, which would be a high score, or maybe even a straight flush or royal flush. Countdown bonus activates at 3 million points. Hurry up value. The value decreases on the display until it reaches 0. Shoot the left spot target to score the current countdown. Alright. So that seems to just be a thing that gets rewarded at the beginning. We also seem to have a carryover from the previous game. We also seem to not always get into a gunfight, just most of the time. So it has to land on that sinker.
Ready, set, draw.
This would totally be a Western style game if it was 10 years earlier with gunfights. These flippers are fairly widely spaced. Let's see.
Ready, set, draw.
And I don't think there's a single reason to let yourself get shot. So we're doing Jackpot scene, which seems to be center lane shots that you're aiming for. And then that rotating platform does go to that upper lane sometimes. Yeah, I'm not sure if I was supposed to have hit that center lane a couple more times or what. This table makes a weird sound effect. I wonder if the top area is just the cards being lit up. That might be the case. So I'm not sure if aces aren't always red and queens aren't always yellow and tens aren't always pink. So they may not be showing or indicating the actual suit. There is a shot I can definitely feel I need to get better at on the right side. But at the moment, it seems like, yeah, I need to get that far left shot really locked in, and I need to get the right shot where I have a where I can lock in more card hands, I think. And I suppose it's worth mentioning that they draw the top guy holding his badge out in the gunfight. That way you know who's the good guy and it doesn't just look like someone is not identifying themselves as police authority. And in 2021, a cop shooting a person of color becomes potentially problematic, even if in an action movie.
Ready, set, draw.
But you can see how stereotypical these bad guys are. I mean, honestly, it is racist art. Like the good guy is a white guy, and all the bad people are either Chinese or Italian or black. This would not fly. At least there'd be a conversation around it. Also, most action movies like this were full of actors who were far too old to be the heroes of the action movies, and by the time they get around to it. At least Tom Cruise, for example, is full of, I assume, plastic surgery so to make himself look young for as old as he actually is.
Set. Draw.
This whole draw sequence is fairly boring. It doesn't vary at all for the feel of it. And I could kind of say the whole table's a little boring. There's not a lot going on here. This is the problem that kind of consistently happens when you have too much open space in the middle. What you would want to do with this is get rid of the poker hands theme and get rid of a single movie thought and instead have a section.
Ready. Set. Draw.
That way there could be like an alien movie, sci-fi movie, there could be an action movie, there could be a romance, there could be mystery, have several themes, maybe even have a bit of a horror movie, or and then you could have distinct sections, and even doing 3 or 4 distinct sections would fill up the field with so much art. This table is interesting in that when you get an extra ball, instead of hitting and making the traditional thwack sound that you would on that you normally would have, instead it makes a siren sound, which the thwack sound was always for the attendants to recognize whether somebody was winning a free ball or a free game. I'm not sure attendants would recognize that sound effect as being so I need to get, I think, far here, and that was probably the only opportunity I was going to get for that, was one shot to get that left shot. It really doesn't give you enough time. And I don't really get the theme of the big number countdown in the middle of the field. Oh. At least we saw what happened when I missed. I was not paying enough attention. And yeah, there's no motivation to miss the gunfight.
Ready. Set. Draw.
I imagine that those motors would wear out fairly quickly for what they're worth. I would say this table probably has too many gimmicks. Like, one gimmick alone here would have been enough, and then they could have backburnered a couple of the other gimmicks to emphasize it a lot more. The backboard and the gunfight should have been the focus, and then the rotating
Ready. Set. Draw.
the rotating ramp, instead of just using gates, should have been something that would have been on a different table right in the center, potentially rotating and changing 2 gates. I could see it where there would be a left center lane and a right center lane, and sometimes it would take you, the left center lane would take you to the left ramp, and then the right center lane would take you to the right ramp, and then it would flip over and crisscross. And that might have worked very nicely if it rotated whenever you hit an in lane. That way you could fairly well ensure that it would not flip while there was a ball
Set.
anywhere near it.
Draw.
But otherwise, you have this situation where that rotating ramp is just rotating way more than I'm even hitting the ball up the ramp. So you're burning out and moving a mechanical component for no reason. In a funny way, pinball is kind of a great example of how mechanical devices could burn up and get used up and break down. And the beauty of a solid state hard drive versus a mechanical hard drive is that a solid state hard drive has no moving parts and can be dropped and shook a lot more than a mechanical hard drive that will break if you basically look at it wrong. Nah, I'm exaggerating there, of course, but of course, as far as hard drives, SSDs are still too expensive to offer the same amount of space as a mechanical hard drive can. There, I think, needs to be a separate complaint about this table design, and this is 89, it was the time, but the fact that there are 3 images of females up in front and another image of a female perhaps being repeated in the background, and we don't have a single line of dialogue from that female character, really goes to show just how unimportant these characters are, and they're just there to look pretty and be silent. This is also one of those tables where you're potentially not getting much description or instruction as far as what you should be shooting for or targeting. We've been seeing more and more of that as we start to see more tables that would have had the capability to have someone talk to you and tell you to shoot the ramp, shoot the target. Alright, well, something popped up on my computer. Let me just close that, and then see if we can get this back into full screen mode without any problems. Okay, I'm back. So this is another point that highlights the problem with Pinball Arcade compared to other emulators that would be like a LibRetro, RetroArch type core. Almost every other emulator would have save states, and if you configure it to do so, it would have saved at least every couple of minutes. But since that didn't happen, and since I was doing other things on my computer at the same time, I wouldn't recommend like accessing a hard drive while you're also defragging a hard drive. That was part of the problem, certainly. That caused just, I suppose, a cascading failure that went from taking the Pinball Arcade out of full screen into windowed mode, which wouldn't have been a big problem. I could have just kept on playing there and should have. To, as soon as I tried to go into full screen mode, the entire screen going black completely. And then at that point, everything was just questionable, so I chose to reset the whole computer just to get a fresh boot on it, which even in 2021 resetting computers is still the solution most of the time. At the very least, if they're gonna play up the stereotypes here, the damsel in distress or the leading lady, the femme fatale, any of those elements should be voiced by a female character, so that we at least know she can speak for no other reason than that. Alright. So apparently, looking what's been blinking, hitting at that point, the left lane wanted me to hit the standing targets on the right.
Set. Draw.
I guess all the lights come on to indicate when to draw somewhat. Right. Now everything here indicates I should be shooting up the center lane. And this feels like a very unfair mode because nothing you're doing otherwise on the table seems to do anything. It doesn't add time to it.
Draw.
Where it would make more sense to have the bumpers, the kickbacks, the slingshots, other elements at least play a role. Like, give me a chance here instead of demanding a single shot. Like, you'd think the bumper would add time, you'd think sinkholes would add a second. Even if you're max out at like 19 seconds, that that seems like it would be a lot fairer. So one of the things we need to do here to fully experience this table is figure out what the catch-up mode does.
Set. Draw.
I can see an idea of having only a two-player mode on this table because you probably aren't losing too much by not having a four-player mode on the table, and then having the quick draw happen between player 1 and player 2. And that would be asking a little bit, but not really a lot, to say player 1 press the left flipper, player 2 hit the right flipper. And then you go 3, 2, 1 shoot, and whoever presses the flipper fastest wins.
Ready. Set. Draw.
That would be an interesting two-player addition to pinball that would not have been ever done before. I think what you get is based on the spinner alone. Interesting. So that's extremely random. And it basically means you just need to get that shot very often. I can't say I love the idea of random shots that you just have to hit over and over again until you finally get the thing you're looking for. That it makes it feel like this is a very low skill table. And
Ready. Set. Draw.
it kind of is. It's kind of low skill for some things and then way too high skill for other things, which is probably just inconsistent in general. So that's the stunt scene. And pretty much every time I start the stunt scene, I drain the ball.
Ready. Set. Draw.
This does just feel like a table that had a concept and thought about the concept way too much, and the gameplay and the game flow a little too less. And I suppose the next thought would have been with the rotating ramps to potentially have 4-way rotating ramps. And basically a square instead of a flat 2 planes. Could also bring that down to a triangle and do 3. There you go. So I completed the stunt scene, and it didn't even matter because that wasn't one of the standard goals. It'll get you 1,000,000 points, and that's nice and all, but this isn't a very high scoring table. I'm not sure I ever really believed that there was a significant number of 4-player games that got played. It's possible that the arcades I went to were fairly empty compared to other arcades, so I could see that happening. And if you are thinking more along the lines of a birthday party, going to an arcade where it's large groups of friends, that makes a little bit more sense. But the thing is, even by '89, arcades would have had to have been so overflowing with variety that a 4-player game still really wouldn't make sense. 4-player games only make sense really if it was a bar that literally had one pinball table and nothing else to do. And I've watched pretty much every episode of Bar Rescue, and every bad bar tends to not have any kind of pinball machines nowadays, or arcade machines really. They seem to have a lot of punching bags that the Bar Rescue host hates because he got sued. Interesting. Well, I stupidly started the defrag again, and then it brought it out of the window mode. Well, you won't see a difference, so I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. We'll stick with the resolution as it is. The good news is that it did, even though the screens went black, it did shut down the computer when I just pushed the power button on the computer, which I have set up to just shut down. So no video footage was lost. Not really. Maybe a second. And I've done a lot of work to have the raw footage as MKV files and then have them remuxed dash re-encoded quickly to an older format that YouTube is more familiar with. So theoretically, the MKV files you could immediately stop recording just through a power outage or something, and the files would still be good. Unfortunately, that's not 100% accurate. There have been times where I've lost footage, even from MKV files. And then there's sometimes cases where you have the footage or most of the footage and it still doesn't want to work with YouTube. Although those are, I think, increasingly being rarer and rarer. It would make sense for the girl to be the voice of the cards. She could say Queen, Jack. She could be the dealer character, Femme Fatale. I mean, even if you're thinking like the James Bond movies, which would have been coming out with the 60s and 70s, all the female leads or given voice lines and something to do. Like, looking at the artwork here, I have no idea who the brunette girl is, and I kind of just assume that the blonde girl is the assistant to the director. It'd be funny if she was the director, but that's highly unbelievable for an 89 table. Because if you did make the assumption that the blonde lady at the art is the director, then you have to either put the guy in the hat with the beard as being either her idiot boyfriend / husband or her idiot brother or assistant, because he has no place to exist there. That's pretty much every director I've ever seen, is that they're the number one person that looks like they should not be on a movie set, where everybody else looks like they actually fit. Let's do one more game and then try a
Ready, set, draw.
try a two-player game. We haven't done that for any of the other tables, but none of the other tables have said that there was anything special about that. I do have a niggling concern or thought that playing with an Xbox controller on Pinball Arcade is actually way worse than playing with a keyboard. Inherently, that's always the case, though. I guess playing with a controller versus keyboard and mouse for almost any game is way less effective. But we've seen plenty of times where the ball has just kind of drained out, and I'm not really feeling the point where the flippers aren't reacting in time, but I would say the throw of a left or right trigger is quite a lot. Like, you do have to go a decent centimeter or two before a trigger works, whereas playing pinball with buttons, as you normally would be playing pinball in the real world, those would be fairly instantaneous, very little throw. There's another instance of the ball getting behind the flipper and it just magically moving to the front of it, which that is not how that would really happen. Right. So I think if I hit, wow, that left flipper can actually block the kickback. I think if I can get the shot, and that's a big if, to the far left, I think that would have gotten one of the goals. But I'm not really pulling that off. I can definitely feel that there are elements on this table that I am not accomplishing. Otherwise I would obviously get the standard goals. And I can't say I really like the fact that one of the rewards is 1,000,000 points when seemingly doing anything else on the table barely gets you 100,000. That upper left flipper is in the way. So I'm gonna have to get really good at flicking it and not holding it. The two things that do bounce the ball back into the playfield, they shoot them up, are interesting for their action, but their angles are pretty awful. Is this a 3-ball multi-ball? There we go. Well, it instantly turned into a 2-ball multi-ball, but whatever. We have this voice, and he doesn't really sound like a director either. Like, it feels like there's a different voice that's saying quiet on this set. It feels like we should have a more distinctive voice there anyways. So what is our standard goal here? Score countdown bonus. I can't even read it. So, oops. Because the screen is not full screen, the start menu is above the bottom. Theoretically, I could read it because I could look on my third monitor. Countdown bonus activates a 3 million bonus, so hurry up. The value decreases to 0. Shoot the top left spot target to score current. So apparently the countdown bonus, as far as I can tell, is literally just a mystery feature, and that's it. Yeah, I'm reading all of this. Sorry, I'm not reading it out loud. I don't even know how you get the score multiplier, actually. Game setup, 2 players. Let's play.
Lights, camera, action.
So 2 players is weird because there's probably going to be a carryover to
Ready, set, draw.
to the cards that are selected. We still are very much in an era in which the solid state memory is being reused because they don't have enough of it, and that's why things are carrying over. It's not because it's an intended or wanted feature. It's just that there's only so much RAM that they can use. Yeah, theoretically, there is nothing here that would stop you from getting 5 of a kind. Select a feature. So, okay, in that case, when I had 3 of a kind, I could have selected the countdown bonus. But I would have had to use the right flipper to select, and I hit the left flipper to confirm. Although it still feels like you need to get the center left ramp, really, to get back to the top to get the gunfight scenes and the mysteries more than anything.
Ready, set, draw.
So where would the catch-up feature kick in? And what does the catch-up feature really do? Like, it's not going to give a new ball to the second player, is it? Nope. So it really could only just potentially change the amount of points you're going to get. I feel like the catch-up feature may just be an extra ball for the second player at the end if they're losing in like 30 seconds or 18 seconds. uh, maybe 19 seconds of gameplay time with an extra ball. Probably not a full extra ball. I really hate this sound effect that's playing though, in the fact that I just don't even know what it's doing. It just sounds like there is a fan going off or something.
Ready, set, draw.
We're also gonna have that same issue, I imagine, with the tornado game, where they did have a fan blowing on the player. There's no real way to emulate that without potentially making somebody plug in a USB controlled fan. It would be funny if they had programmed it to like speed up the CPU fans and everything on a computer, but that would not be acceptable either, to potentially turn on all the fans on a computer and make it as loud as possible. The fans on my computer are pretty adjustable and adjusted, that they don't really need to be anywhere as loud as max speed usually, and they'll turn themselves up if I was playing a very demanding game that is very high on the CPU load, which frankly at this point I'm not sure I'm ever going to play a game that is as high on demand as the overpoweredness of my computer is.
Ready, set,
I may get some ray tracing AAA game at some point. It runs pretty badly. What is happening more and more though is, because YouTube footage really doesn't need to be more than 1080p, the idea of going to 2K is kind of ridiculous, and that would be the only thing that that would start to push my hardware up, is once you start wanting to go to 1280, 1440p, 2K, 4K, things like that. As long as you're happy at 1080p, which most games don't even look that much better at higher resolutions because you just have to get closer to them, then you're probably going to eventually just be able to buy a whole bunch of cheaper equipment and cheaper computers. I have no idea what that catch-up feature was about. It didn't seem like it did anything. I find that strange. Let's see if we can figure out what a catch-up feature would work. Player catch-up catches up with the next highest player's score at the end of the ball. First place awards 1 million points. So, do you not get the catch-up feature at all unless... I guess what we would have to do is turn on this. That's not beeping. Alright. We have a start, left, right, and enter. See what start does. Nothing. See what left, right does. Nothing. Enter. Push. See lamp matrix. Hmm. It doesn't seem like it's anything too useful here. It's just tests that would make sense in a real world table. There's a sound effect we haven't heard. But I cannot figure out even how to use this. At all. There is also, I think, an option here that's worth mentioning under settings where you could literally apparently just disable tilt. Okay, unlock this feature by completing the table's wizard goals. You must complete the standard goals in order to unlock the table wizard goals. So I guess at that point you could potentially unlock it so that tilt never happens. All right. And seemingly here, it's still in this like program mode. And I can't just start a game. Interesting. So whatever I did to that totally messes it up.
Lights, camera, action.
Well, we still have ball control mode.
Ready, set, draw.
And see, you may just have a major flaw here in that you cannot get the catch-up bonus. Come on. Right. So, ball control. That's what you would have to do. But you can't do it cheating. Anyways. I suppose the real question is how much could you cheat here? Now, even with the magnetic control, you're going to go through the spinner and it's going to spin enough that you could never really control what it lands on. It doesn't seem like it even gives you anything if you don't hit the spinner and spin it enough. And I think these curved standing targets are probably your score multiplier. Although it doesn't seem like it's really doing that. Seems like maybe going through this area might be your score multiplier. Or maybe there's just a little bit you have to do with everything. No, this is the score multiplier. So first thing you'd want to do is hit these curved standing targets, which is pretty much an impossible task to do without draining the ball. These are terrible shots. It definitely feels like there should be a sneak-in bonus or something behind the standing targets in the center. Either that or put a ramp to jump back or jump back to the background. Since this table is already sending the ball up in the air, it wouldn't be crazy to have a sink area in the center and then pop the ball all the way to the bumpers. Maybe you don't want to shoot the balls directly on the bumpers, but you could maybe go over the bumpers and then back towards the back. Hitting those doesn't seem like it really accomplishes too much.
Quiet on the set. Roll 'em. Quiet on the set. Roll 'em.
And that got me a multi-ball, which immediately drained out again.
Million lit.
There's just kind of nothing here.
Million lit.
Hitting those standing targets in the background doesn't really accomplish anything.
Roll 'em.
And this is the stunt section where you're supposed to hit a bunch of other things, but it locks out the quick draw. You have to hit that. You have to hit the 3 standing targets, and even with ball control you really can't pull it off. And it wants you to hit the side.
Million lit.
I'm not really sure what some of these light up sections are in the background too. So with 2 pair you don't score high enough to get a choice.
Roll 'em.
Wow, this ball just does not want to go up.
Quiet on the set. Roll 'em.
And that may have given me a 3-ball multi-ball because of me locking that skill shot, I suppose.
10. Million lit.
Still can't really get the ball up even the smallest of
Million
ramps. And it's just saying million lit,
lit.
million lit, million lit.
Million lit.
But,
Million.
oh, I guess that was the million. So yeah, you could totally cheat that, and you could totally get, I think, probably a significant amount of score by hitting the loop more often.
Ready, set, draw.
I really just don't feel like this is much of a table. I feel like even Earthshaker is more interesting. And so they just want you to get the jackpots to hit that center area multiple times.
Roll 'em.
Which the center shot is about the worst shot you could ever do. And then score times 10 multipliers as high as you can get a score.
Million lit.
You can, so right to select. So 5,000 points begins stunt race countdown bonus. Right, so countdown bonus would be to hit that as quickly as possible.
Million lit. Million lit. Million lit.
Then you can come down back and get a million that way. So if you had a really good game, you could score fairly high here, but you are also pretty much just doing the same thing over and over again.
Ready, set,
Same 3 or 4 things. Yeah, when you compare this to like Elvira, like which had much more personality, I wouldn't say Elvira is particularly even that much better of a table, but it had personality there and nostalgia there, where George Lucas and Steven Spielberg in particular always tried to sell themselves as much as their movies, and always came off as kind of irrelevant people to me. I was probably fairly young at the time, but even now I wouldn't really think that the celebrity director or producer of a movie should exist, that their art should stand on its own. And if you start to look at some of the George Lucas, Steven Spielberg art that they've created, it's not really that good. That's interesting. I missed, and I actually thought I had gotten that one. I feel like that's what should have happened a lot more often. Is it should have had a random chance of not working. You could basically hit the ball back up that ramp every single time and just get rewards, and depending on the rewards they give you. So I'm at 11.1 million before the times 10 bonus, which brought it up to 14 million after all that bonus. So that's what happens when you pull too soon. I anticipated it. That would have been a great point for the director to say cut. It's funny that he doesn't say that when the ball drains out. He doesn't say that. Reshoot. He doesn't say, like, the phrase cut would have existed and been very well known in '89. So I would have had the voice actors say that line. Then maybe you would have them say cut it out, and then it would just be the same sound file being clipped. Yay, an extra ball. I feel like I'm on the 5th ball too, and I don't know how I would be on the 5th ball. Probably not. I'm probably on the 2nd ball, but I took so much time cheating in the first ball that it didn't matter. Actually, nothing I'm doing matters. But I'm trying to give this table as much of a chance as possible. To see if there's something here that I could grow to like a little bit more. I don't absolutely hate this table. I still feel like Genie and Paragon are tables that I definitely was not in the mood to play by the time I put an hour into them, where I could see myself in a month or two coming back and playing this table just fine. But there is definitely a consideration here, as there is a high number of tables that I would struggle to actually play through if I was trying to get all the wizard goals. So I wanted to once again look at the standard goals. It is a countdown bonus that it's asking us to get, not a catch-up bonus. So I thought it might have been a catch-up bonus. That would have been weirder. And then I want to look at what this is. It says Gunfight Lock Light Special. So this area here is at some point turned into a lock or light special. there's a light here specifically for the catch-up being possible. This is the Stair foot chase ramp. That honestly, that is an interesting idea to instead have a actual stairs or something that looks like a ramp and then has stairs under it. So a clear see-through ramp with stairs, or something where you land at the top of the stairs and it actually goes downward. Although actual stairs would probably cause the ball to fling in all kinds of places. Pops add to the jackpot. This loop doesn't do anything, which I guess that means there's just a gate and the ball will eventually either rotate one way or the other and end up in that hole. This shoots upward. I feel like you could easily have had this shoot in that direction, or shoot up into this ramp, or shoot back into the alleyway even to start over. These pop-up bumpers are fine, but not really doing anything. No top lane. This ramp doesn't have really a lot of meaning. And then this rotating ramp between whether it goes back and around and up is not used well at all. This shot is too hard. These standing targets are way too hard. It's pointless to have the standing targets behind the drop-down targets. I suppose there might be a case here for a wizard goal to accomplish all of that, and that would be fairly insane to do a gunfight and a multi-ball and a stair foot chase and a jackpot and a stunt. Although I don't know what starts the stair foot chase scene per se, if there actually is a scene there, or if you just have to well, it does say stair foot chase scene, and then during multi-ball you're shooting this loop. Now there's more instructions on the table than anything. This skull face kick save makes no sense at all. It plays into none of the movies. Same as here. Wow, babes. Again, makes no sense at all. We have no idea who Genie is. We have no idea who this character is supposed to be. Although we do see her at the stair foot chase here, I assume. Although it might be Genie, actually, that's going up there. Because if you look, Genie's the blonde with the white shirt and the pants. And yeah, white shirt, blonde hair. Up here she's wearing kind of a skirt. Down here she's wearing blue pants, matching him. So the brunette character in particular plays no role in the story. She just shouldn't be there. I don't know why you would bother to pay an artist to even draw that if it's not going to play any role to the narrative. This screen is just way too big. Feels like there definitely was going to be something else here, like something that looked like a film strip, or that would spin around, spin up and down and make an image. Yeah, so I guess what I'm really saying is I don't like the art on the table, I don't like the gameplay, so it's definitely not a top winner in my book as far as tables. Which, that's fine. Like, I did say after playing Black Knight 2000 and Taxi that if we, in the last 4 tables, even got one that was good, I would be satisfied, and I think Elvira is pretty good, and, well, I kind of hated Bone Busters, and this is a mediocre table. Earthshaker is actually kind of appealing to go back and play, too. It's not one of the greatest tables, but it's slightly better than mediocre. And then that leaves us with the 90s era, where as we enter the 90s eras and go deeper into the 90s eras. Once we hit about Terminator 2 here, I feel like we're going to start to see 3 out of 4 tables being fairly great. Hopefully. It would really, really suck to potentially go through all the 90s and hit a 50% good versus 50% bad. But I guess also if you're grading on a scale, 50% of the tables would be good and 50% would be bad. And being that this is being recorded in 2021, it kind of sucks that there aren't really any 2010s era tables listed here. Or I guess maybe it's more accurate to say like the 2010s tables are being added to the 2000 era because there just wasn't enough tables that they could license for the 2000 era. Remember, like each one of these is covering a decade. This bottom section now covering 2 decades, moving into 3 decades. And this is the dead age, I suppose, of pinball, in which arcades are gone. So 90s era shows the last big hurrah for pinball. The 2000s era shows the death of it. Anyways, we'll get into that more later. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.